Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We all have a story that's worth telling. And it's not just our life story. It could be a situation. It could be you're on vacation, whatever it might be. But finding the best way to tell that story can be a challenge for many of us. We're going to talk with somebody who coaches on how to create the perfect story. She's also a screenwriter, storytelling coach. Today, we're going to focus on the travel narratives, what you say to people about your travels. But this also translates to, I think, most storytelling that we do, any of the communication that we have. She is Michelle Cutler, and she's back with us. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you, Steve.
So when we say travel narrative, let's home in on that right there. Are we talking about when you go on vacation and you tell a friend, hey, I went to this place, or you do a post or something like that?
Well, I mean, there's a rich history of travel writing, just from centuries, just explorers and navigators and just people traversing the world and have kept logs and records. And that is travel writing. But I think when we're talking in sort of the modern, contemporary, everyday sense, people are moving much more around than they used to before. Travel's a lot more accessible. It goes to a lot more places. And then we have these phones, and we just take photos of things and post them. And we maybe throw a few words in, great, Taj Mahal, amazing, or something like this. But there's so much to be shared with that image, or even just with that memory, if you're out, or if you're even somewhere going for work, a business trip, and you bring something back to the team that's a little bit more, and then this happened, and then this happened, and so this, it's, again, these are all sort of tools. Everything you and I talk about are always about tools of engagement, and it does make your life more enjoyable, of course, to share stories and then to hear stories come back at you before sharing them.
I don't want to be negative. I rarely even ride that train. However, when you're scrolling through posts on social, and I'm happy that people go away, they're on vacation. I am personally overdue to go away. So it's kind of, I use the word kind of, cool, or the two words, unless you put the A at the end of kind. It's kind of interesting. But I find myself becoming immune to it. When somebody just posts a picture, like, for example, current situation, and with a picture. All right, so you're someplace nice. That's great. I'm happy for you. I hope you have a great time. I look at it this way, and I do this whenever I post anything on social, travel related or not. What's in it for the person reading it? Or if I'm reading it, I don't want to sound egotistical, but what's in it for me? Like, give me something. Why is this place wonderful? A picture's worth 1,000 words. I get that, but you need to use words.
Well, I mean, look, here's the thing. There's a lot of reasons in the current climate that we're in, technology-wise. It's important to use words, because that's how a lot of ways, if you're using it for business, or even if your socials are an extension of your business, your brand, it's all about searchability, right? Something we've talked about before, like this SEO rich content. So and this is something I'm, giving workshops about now that I feel like I kind of cracked, is that it's our natural, it's the human nature to tell stories. That's a lot of what our language is about. Most dogs don't tell stories to each other. They sniff each other's butts, right? So we have our way of telling a story, and that's how our civilization, operates. So what you put on that post, for example, isn't only just, yes, it's definitely to say what's in it for me, but at the same time, what are you being found for? Like, what is the search engine? Like, let's say, what I do, I work one-on-one with people and coaching them in their storytelling, whether it's for a memoir or a screenplay, or we're just trying to even figure out what the medium might be. Maybe it's a serial podcast. But so what would it be? What would be interesting about what I show, where if I travel or where I live, which is a place that I do live somewhere that is a destination travel place. So in a way, I'm always in that place. Um, so I look for language in my storytelling that helps people feel like they get to know me a little bit better. So they get to see maybe what my interests are or how I frame a story or how I frame, a location, a place that I've been, who I was with. I like to name the people I'm with, give some characterization, share some of what we shared in this place. There's this one rule that I really love in this one Facebook group I'm in. It's a private Facebook group for writers. And in it, it says, no self-promotion posting. If you're
Mm,
going to promote, if you're going to post something that's a workshop you're doing or an essay you published or a book you're doing or whatever, that in that post, there has to be like 2 or 3 key takeaways for the reader of the post, regardless if they click on the link. So, it's a really good rule to follow. Again, I'm not big on rules creatively, but there are some nice rules that help us, be consistent and effective. And that being, whenever you post something and you're sharing a photo of that amazing, like we're saying, cup of coffee with that beautiful heart, I see that in almost every coffee shop at this point. So what is it about that beautiful cup of coffee in that moment that's transformative to you? How do I relate to that? To you enjoying it? Does it remind you of something? What does it smell like? What's the sounds of the place? Bring me into that moment, even if
yep.
it's for a few seconds. It's actually a joy for me to escape my, if I'm sitting on the train and I'm, looking at posts or I'm sitting and waiting for something and I'm looking at something just like, oh, that looks so cool. And then I get a little bit more out of it than, oh, that looks so cool. I get like, oh, maybe I traveled there just for a moment in my
Hmm.
mind.
Yeah, it feels like you've been transported and you feel connected to the location, destination, vacation because you're connected to the person that posted it. It's not just
Hmm.
anybody. You have some connection, whether it's a friend, a relative, or just a Facebook friend. Um,
Hmm.
why don't we? How about we look at that? Let's pick something like we skimmed coffee. Why don't we pick
Hmm.
something that somebody could uh, want to tell about? Let's say we can pick anything here. A meal. It could be a picture of the ocean. Insert name of destination. It could be in the
Hmm.
Caribbean or whatever. And how would you reframe it? What would you? I call them camera angles. How would you look at it differently, or suggest to if somebody wanted to tell that story?
Well, I mean, again, knowing your audience is really important.
Mm,
So, we're talking about just because it's so easy to talk about an Instagram story or reel or post, okay? But it can also be on some other social media platform, and it can also be, heaven forbid, you invite all your friends over to sit and watch a slideshow of your, your
yeah.
vacation, right? You better have drinks and snacks.
Right.
So, the what brought you there is always important. And basically, it's like a snapshot from a journey. And if you think about or an adventure, even, and sometimes that adventure may be soul searching. Perhaps you're off by yourself, you're at a yoga retreat in this absolutely beautiful place, and you are stepping away from the crowd and you're finding yourself down some path and you're having this moment and you're taking a photo of this place or yourself in this place or something to this um, more than saying like love yoga retreats, you might bring it in where what you've been going through in these months leading up to this and why you're there and what this moment of quietude is bringing you. And, the nature, something about the nature, the flowers, the smell, the temperature.
Mm,
It doesn't have to be like a report card, in that way, but it does it really, if you think about these things in that moment, it really does ground you in the moment. I mean, it really does, in a way, become like meditation on place. Like, who am I in this place? You know, um, what am I bringing to this place? It's not just what does this place give me? That's sort of the tourist angle where it's like, first we went to the stalls at the market, then we went to the this, and then we went to the that. Um, and the photos might be amazing where I'm looking, I'm like, whoa, those spices look incredible.
hmm.
What are they? What are they? What do they smell like? What are they used for? Um, a friend of mine's in Morocco right now in Essaouira, and she was asking me if I knew of any places or things to do. And I had spent some time there before, and I said, "Oh, I did this amazing cooking class when I was there." And I couldn't find the exact class I did, so I did a search for her, and I found one where you meet in the morning at the market, right? And you go around and you select the herbs and you select the seasonings and the ingredients with the cook, the chef that's teaching you, and you're understanding how they work together, and then you're bringing them back to the kitchen, and then you're working on how to prepare them, right? Like that's a really good way to think about your storytelling in travel writing, or travel posting or sharing, or just storytelling in general. It's like, get us in there, bring us there.
How do you put yourself into it? So we're telling, and you said this before, what we bring to it, that we're mostly talking about the experience, or suggesting when somebody tells their story, what it was like. Picture of the ocean, 86 degrees, warm, so refreshing. The water even tastes good, whatever it is. How do you flip that around and what you brought to the vacation or destination? You said that before, and I'm trying to get like a reference for that.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I guess I'm a bit like sensitive about that for two reasons. One being, I live the majority of my time in a country that's not my own, right? So it's been for a while, and I live in a place where a lot of people are looking at coming to and moving to. It's a historically sort of a vacation travel destination, reinvent your life. It's not Thailand, it's Spain, kind of thing, right? And so I'm very aware of, you know, what I'm bringing to every cultural setting, because I could also just be the sponge, right? That just soaks it all in. And I think that happens when you first arrive somewhere, you sort of just soak it all in, and you have like initial reactions and initial observations, and they're usually like in direct comparison to what you're used to. So, we had friends and family coming to visit from Indiana, coming to Granada, to this part of Spain where we live. And the first thing that they were noticing was, how kind people are, how unhurried people are, how the food tastes better in some way. Like they just were noticing things. Of course, the prices are, not like in the States. And so, they were noticing these things in comparison to what they're experienced. I've been here long enough that I notice things in terms of how they evolve, like in situation, like seasonal changes, or the effect of economic changes on social gatherings. I start to notice my reference points become deeper ingrained into where I am. And then I start to think, when I'm walking into this place, am I looking at it with my eyes sort of as a local? But I can't ever really be a local, because I mean, I could spend 25, 30 years here, and I may be a local, but I don't think I'll ever know. I know I won't ever know what it's like to be from here, and to always respect that and understand that and have respect for it. But the other thing is, I used to be told when I was younger, in my early 20s, that I used to walk into rooms and change the room when I walked in, and it wasn't a compliment. I mean, it wasn't meant like you light up the room when you walk in. It was someone who said, when you walk in the room, it's like the spotlight turns on, the lights turn on, and like everything has to be fun and everything has to be on, and it's exhausting. And I was like, ooh, I didn't know I did that.
Wow.
So yeah, so like we bring, I was telling you this, a writer I met in Granada, an American writer I met in Granada. I don't know her personally. I met her, through a Facebook group. We talked on the phone. I was like, wonderful, let's meet up. And everything was too noisy for her. And there's no earth, there's no ground, this is just bringing all of this sort of negative, you know, negative energy and negative observations into a room that I could have gone in with other people, that they would have been like, this is so great, look at how wonderful. Whereas to her, it was noisy. To somebody else, it's like, look at how alive and social they are,
I have a friend just like that.
Yeah, right.
Like,
So that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what you bring to the space.
yeah,
Like maybe that's your friend.
he's very social, but it's on his terms. So he may throw a party and people come, and that's all good. But if we all want to hang out, hey, let's go to this great, band playing someplace, and let's go. He's like, oh no, it's too noisy. I don't want to be there. I'm like, yeah, but you throw parties on your own. It's on his terms.
Right, exactly.
There's a deep story there too, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And the thing that was interesting to me and I was so happy about is that I didn't choose the place. She chose the place. And so imagine how it is when you suggest like, oh, we should go here. And
Hmm.
then it's a person who's not going to like anywhere, but it's much easier to put the blame or responsibility on back onto me, for example, because I selected the place. So luckily that didn't happen. But it does I think we are at a point in sort of our evolution, our communications evolution, that everybody has an opinion and everybody has a Yelp review and everybody has, let's just say, an opinion, right? And we are so quick to share them and we're so quick to churn them out. Like I'm more of a slow news type of person, like a slow opinion. Like I definitely get a fast opinion about something. I'm a pretty attuned person. But communicating that opinion, publicizing it, posting it, I like to hold off on because doesn't mean you can't write it down. It doesn't mean you don't write it in your journal, but there's no story there. A first impression and a first opinion is not a story. It's a punctuation mark.
Say that
So,
again. I want to process. Let's hear that again.
so I'm saying like the first opinion, or the first thing you see and your opinion of it, there is no story because there's no beginning, middle, end. There's no evolution. It's like we were talking about in the rule of threes. If you have a first event, it's just an event. If you have a second event, like the first, it's like, is there a pattern here? I'm not sure. Is it a coincidence or a pattern? And then by the third event, it's either a change in the pattern or a continuation of the pattern. And then it just gives you, it's like just gives you so much more material to work with, than again, like saying, look at where I was. Isn't that great? It's like, yeah, that's great for you. I like, I think that actually it just leaves people kind of hanging.
Should you, when you write any communication, whether it's a review, whether it's a post, whatever, should you in your mind think what is in it for the person that's reading this? Always take it from that perspective as opposed to a current situation or great cup of coffee. Should you look at it in a different way?
I think so. To be a humanitarian, yes. Like to
Mm.
be a fellow citizen, yes, you do. I'm that's me personally. I'm not, again, that's just my belief. I believe in trying on other people's shoes for a minute to see how they live or how they might see a situation instead of being so incredibly certain, at all times about all things, and also just makes things more interesting. And as well, it teaches you what you don't like. Sometimes it's really important to dip into something that you may or may not be sure of, to then come out being like, yep, nope, that's like me with anchovies on pizzas. I tried it when I never liked an anchovy on a pizza ever. When I turned 40, we were in this small town in Portugal, off season, and the only thing open was a pizza place. And we went in there to get pizza on my 40th birthday. And the pizza I wanted, everything on it I wanted except it had some anchovies. And I said to my partner, I said, I'm going to tell them to take the anchovies off. He's like, you sure? And I was like, no, you know what? I haven't had anchovies in so long. Maybe I'll like it. Maybe I will. You're right. Keep those anchovies on. You know what? No, I didn't like them. So I was like, I knew I didn't like them, but it was worth trying. It had been so long. I was in Portugal. It was beautiful. Why not try? And that's a story I can tell, a whole thing about pizza. I can make a whole story about toppings at that point. I can make a whole story about our biases towards our tastes, like what we think we like or don't like. Um, it's more
I
than
see
saying like,
myself.
ew, anchovy on pizza.
I don't do seafood, except I just started. Don't laugh, anybody. Um, Eating fried calamari. Not
Okay.
really seafood to some,
It
but
is. It is.
eh, when
It's
you,
a calamari. It's a squid.
Yeah, exactly. Octopus, whatever. So when you told the anchovy story, I can relate to it because I want to give it a shot, but I don't. But I do.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if you don't want a bad experience, but you want to see what the big deal about anchovies is. And my fish story, why I have an aversion to seafood, goes back to when I was about 22, was dating Diane Critelli. Maybe it was like one date, two dates. She had a boat. Her family wasn't around. We went on the boat. We cooked mussels, half a bottle of
Ooh.
wine together. They were bad. And I
Oh
got,
God.
and from that point forward, I
I've
could,
had a bad muscle before too.
yeah. And I just never went back to seafood. And it's only like in
Yeah,
the
I
last
hear
couple of years.
you.
Yeah, I just
I could
can't.
totally hear you on that. Well, so okay, so I had a bad muscle in a small village in Spain. And I since I love mussels. I'm from Baltimore. I love seafood.
Mm.
I've spent a lot of time in Maine. We eat, crabs with your hands. I have no problem with seafood. I just won't eat a mussel in a bar. Like the mussel, the bar mussels, I won't eat. I will definitely eat like the steamed mussels, in Belgium or in France. I will definitely eat a pot of steamed mussels with pommes frites, no problem. But I won't eat the mussel that's been sitting on the bar for a while
Totally.
for the exact same reason.
And I think this is in line with that as well. When you see sushi at a supermarket, grocery
Yeah.
store, not a high end one, just, they're just doing it just to make some
Oh
extra
yeah,
cash. I've even seen
totally.
sushi at gas stations, like better gas stations, but still, no, just no. For all the reasons we identified. If I,
Imagine for the long haul trucker.
right, I guess I feel you're taking a chance. Gonna pivot if we could to an
Yeah.
email we got, instant feedback, steve@gmail.com. Lisa at Binghamton, New York says, I'm finding it hard to write my resume. Picking the right words or descriptions is a challenge for me. How do you edit it so it's memorable and clear? Is this something that you help with?
Yes. So, Lisa, I definitely do help with that. And I was actually doing this for myself 2 days ago to update a particular CV that I have for commercial writing because I do a lot of advertising, commercial writing, direct to client writing. And I hadn't really updated my skills or my reference or just anything in a couple of years. And I'm out there searching for some new business right now. And so I was doing exactly the same thing. And one thing I realized is to start searching, like to do a Google search of what it is I do. So I wanted to see what are the words that people use when they search for, let's say, commercial treatment writer or brand ideation. That's like a new word to me. I did not know what I do is brand ideation, but apparently it is. And so I started to like create this vocabulary list of reference like skills that someone would search for that I actually can do, and that relate and or also ones that I aspire to do as well. So I may have done them in some way, shape, or form, but not necessarily that's what I was hired for. And then I again going back to the storytelling, like creating a narrative for each of those blocks, like the block that goes under, what you did from 2017 to 2019 or these things. And that block, whether it's bullet points, whether it's paragraph, you have to be so tight on words and use every word effectively to really describe what it was you did in a way that resonates as truthful and strong and something that you can do. But one thing that's kind of cool is LinkedIn. When you set up your resume, when you fill out your what you've done on LinkedIn, I guess it's called the resume thing. LinkedIn will actually create a resume for you. So, I mean, at least as a template. So you can, as long as you fill out your LinkedIn in a way that is full and again, searchable, because so much work is found on LinkedIn right now, um, LinkedIn will create that template for you. But I also would love to work with you. We could just do one session and go through, what you're working on and just start to tailor it and tailor it and tailor it so that it's up to date and it's ambitious. It feels the line between ambitious and humble. But remember, most CVs are scanned by AI now, so you
Yep.
have to really have those keywords in there that are what that job is looking for. You can also look at job descriptions that you would want, like a job you would want, and start to look at, they always list the skills you have to have,
Mm-hmm.
and like start to use those words in your resume because that's what those AI little bots will scan for.
Yep. Yeah. You mentioned AI, and just pivot from the resume for a second or not. So many people look toward AI now to write for them. But I
Mm-hmm.
find it almost humorous that those who use AI to get that done, and there's, we talked about that before. There's some good, there's some
Yeah.
bad there. People are now using an app to humanize the AI text. So
Right.
you throw it into
Well,
AI, have it, do its thing, but now it just looks a little artificial. So now you throw it into another app to make it human. Crazy.
yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like I've been playing around with it. You have to, well, okay, not everybody has to, but I have to understand what AI does because I need to know where it is as a tool and where it is as a fake, as a giveaway. I get material from people who I'm going to help write things. I can tell was AI generated. I mean, I can just tell immediately that it was. And the only way really that I can tell is because I've played with the prompting myself to
Mm-hmm.
see what kind of language there. It has a way of using the same patterns of construction and the same, it likes to use like work in triplets, like three adjectives always or three adverbs. It likes to use, it's not just this, it's also this. Like there are these constructions that it leans on that are supposed to sound human, and they would if I wrote it. It would sound like me if I wrote it. But it starts to become so predictable
Mm.
that you're losing your edge. Of course, again, if you're writing for a bot, like if the AI is going to be scouring hundreds and hundreds of resumes um, for to pick 10 to send to HR, you want to be kind of bot friendly there, I would say. But it all has to be true for it to actually feel good to even do it. Otherwise, you're turning yourself into a robot. It's like you become like in 1984, you become part of the chattel. Um, and again, that's just no way to live, is it, Steve?
No, no. But let's ride for, and we're just about out of time. On the other side of it, would you say it's reasonable to have AI be your starting point to write something, or just use it to maybe pull a couple of words or maybe a phrase from using it that way, as opposed to doing the entire job for you?
Personally, I would never use AI as the first point of contact. Like to me, I see its use in an organizational tool, an editorial tool. I see its use in gathering like information and organizing it for me. I used to just do that myself. I
Mm-hmm.
would listen to calls. I would be on calls or listen to recordings of calls, like agency, client calls, creative calls, and I would sit and type up the entire call and the amount of content that I needed. If it was an hour-long call, the amount of content I needed was about like 22 minutes worth of content, but I'd have to go through the whole call. For me, that's where AI is very helpful. It saves my eyes, it saves my hands,
Mm-hmm.
and I can just get straight to the content I need and I can organize it, right? I would, as far as composing, no, I would never start with it. It's just too easy. It cuts out the entire brain process of problem solving, which is what makes writing interesting. Like, that's what
Hmm.
makes things interesting is seeing how someone solves the problem on the page. Like, that's why a good piece of journalism or, a good piece of nonfiction writing is like we are the detective with you. Like we are along for the ride. I don't want the answers right away. Don't make it so easy. I don't even have to work as a reader. So you're cheating yourself and you're shortchanging the whole process and experience of problem solving.
Yeah.
And I say always, if it's easier to voice record, if writing is uncomfortable for you, for a lot of people had bad experiences writing in high school or college or in other situations, work or jobs, um, voice record, voice record, take a walk, talk it out, get your language into the idea, your ideas, like just keep building on that and building on it and exhausting yourself. And then maybe start to work with that. You can transcribe it, and then you've got a draft based on your thoughts, your ideas, your words. That's still AI. It's a transcription, right? It's still working with AI, but you're not generating, you're organizing, you're refining yourself. And if you don't feel confident in that ability, you can start to prompt the AI to fix your verb tenses. Like I tend, I was a writer I was working with the other day. She says she finds herself switching in verb tenses and doesn't realize she's doing it, in the middle. So you can use it in that way, like a good set of eyes to, check out your verb tenses. It's a great tool in that way, but I would never lean on it to generate or represent you and your beliefs and your ideas, because honestly, it's cookie cutter. We will all know that you don't have an idea.
Yeah, you bring up a great point, and maybe we can circle back to it in that bad writing experience. And if you believe what many therapists and psychologists say, that experiences that we dealt with when we were younger are in our subconscious, and that's really what's blocking us from moving our lives forward in many different areas. So if you take the writing situation, you could have been 7 years old, or you could have been 11 years old and had to write something for school or whatever, had an issue, maybe somebody critiqued it and it hurt back then, and now you've internalized it, and you don't even know when you go to write. It's like, I just can't do it. I don't know what it is. It may be that. You have a
Absolutely.
block.
You know what? Let's bookmark that and let's talk about that next week, because I have a lot to say on that. And of my own experience for myself, and then working with other people.
Same.
And I do think it's a very, and I don't want to say common as in a diminutive way common, but I think it's a very shared experience between a lot of people. And I think it's something definitely we should talk about.
I have done thousands of podcasts on limiting beliefs. I've talked to so many and I'd love to dig into this. I got my own.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we both have been in those situations too, where something was said and now you have a block, and the challenge is remembering it and moving past it. Michelle, great talking with you. How do we connect with you, whether it's improving storytelling or like Lisa has a challenge with resume writing? What's the best way?
Sure. It's my website, which is michellecutler.com. MICHELLECUTLER.com is the easiest way through my contact form. And then obviously I have like some socials, and you can find me by my name. But I also do, these free 15-minute discovery calls with people. So that might be something Lisa would want to do. She could look at my website, send me an email through the website, and then I can set up a call, and we can just I like to do those as like low stakes brainstorm chats, so that it's not like I'm selling you something, I'm not going to hold back from you so you buy more services. It's like sometimes 15 minutes is all it takes to unblock something, and then if there's a need to go forward, like, oh, we could do it for an hour, then we start talking about that. But that's a good way to get to know, where you are and what you need, and formalize it a little bit.
Well, like anything, it's a relationship. And then it gets a little bit personal because somebody's going to share with you what they want to accomplish. So start the conversation. MichelleCutler.com. Great having you on, Michelle. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
And
my pleasure.
next time talk maybe about those limiting beliefs, why we can't write, or writer's block. You never thought of it that way.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to prepare for that. I love that idea.
Awesome. All right. Have a good one. We'll catch up soon.
You too.
We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Gotta get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend.
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.